Well, who left the keys in the ignition of this YouTube channel, huh? That's right, WrestleTalk friends and fans, Tempest is back with a review of Impact Bound for Glory. And I have no idea how many minutes. Let's just see how this goes. So the only match on the Countdown show was a 6-way match to determine the first ever Impact Digital Media Champion, as Jordan Grace was able to defeat Fall Out Boy, John Skyler, Crazy Steve, Chelsea Green, and Madison Rayne. This match was really short, clocking in at about 5 minutes, not even 1 minute per competitor. Just insane. The match wasn't bad, but with only 5 minutes, everyone was rushing to get all their spots in, and they could only do so much with that amount of time. Jordan Grace was able to get the win with the Grace driver, and honestly, she is as good a choice to be the first champion here as anybody. Jordan Grace is just fantastic. But with the start of the main show, we got the Impact Knockouts Tag Team Championship match as the Inspiration took on Decay. It was very cool to see the Inspiration teaming up after so long apart, but honestly, this match wasn't my favorite. There were a lot of really clunky spots earlier, and it didn't seem like the two teams were really on the same page, and it took a few minutes to get going. Once it did, the match got a lot better, but there were still a lot of spots, like with Rosemary and Havoc biting their opponents, where it just kind of takes me out of it a little bit. The Inspiration eventually did get the win with a neckbreaker powerbomb combo, winning the Impact Knockouts Tag Team Championship, and that honestly made the match significantly better. That moment, after everything they've gone through this year, was a really nice feel-good moment. Very good stuff. The match itself was probably about a 2 out of 5, but the finish helped bump this up to a 3 out of 5. This was fun stuff. Next, we had maybe my favorite thing on the show, as Trey Miguel took on Steve Macklin and El Phantasmo for the vacant X Division Championship. This match was just fantastic, and honestly, all three guys showed that they were 3 perfect candidates to be the next X Division champion. There were some parts of the match where it broke down into more of a typical spot fest, but this was an excellent triple threat match with the usual spots of throwing one guy out, then 2 guys wrestle, throw one guy out, 2 guys wrestle. You know what you've seen, but this was better than most. Some of the best spots in this were super simple, like El Phantasmo running wild with back rakes, and some were not so simple, like Steve Macklin spearing El Phantasmo through the ropes while he was upside down. Oh my god. If you've ever seen Big E spear through the rope and think that he's about to hurt himself, watch this one. It looks about 10 times worse. It really is insane to think about how good Steve Macklin has been since he's left WWE, and just how little they had him do during his entire time there. I could not think of one memorable Steve Cutler match, but I'm not going to forget this Steve Macklin match for a very long time. Eventually, it was Trey Miguel who was able to hit a big brainbuster on ELP and follow it up with a Meteora for the win. I'm sure it'll be a party in the treehouse with Trey Miguel now holding a little bit of gold of his own. This triple threat match was absolutely fantastic and could very easily have been the best match on the show. I'm giving this a 5 out of 5. The next match certainly wasn't a 5 out of 5, as Heath and a mystery partner took on Violent by Design. The idea behind this match was that Heath is looking for a partner, and it built and built and built throughout the match as he took on Violent by Design 2-on-1 before Rhino eventually made the save for his former tag team partner, hitting a gore and getting the win. It was a nice feel-good moment to see this team back together for sure, but this match really wasn't much. It was a squash until Rhino came out for the save. I'm gonna give it a 2 out of 5. I'll say, how many minor WWE angles can transcend promotions like this one has? Heath Slater saying he's got kids and needing a job on SmackDown happened over 5 years ago, and him and Rhino are just still teaming on Impact pay-per-views. I love it. Next up was the Call Your Shot Gauntlet match, which was basically a Royal Rumble. I'm not gonna go through this spot by spot because frankly, I will be here all night, but here were some of the biggest surprises. Rocky Romero came out at number 2, always love me some New Japan stars on my Impact shows. Number 9, however, was former WWE Women's Champion and former Quizlemania Champion, I'll let you decide which of those is more important, Melina making her return to Impact. However, of course, the biggest surprise on the show was that of the Kiss Demon appearing in this Battle Royal. I wanted to shout it out loud on the little board thing, but I ran out of U's. They really only give you like 2 or 3 of each letter here. It's ridiculous. It's the same guy too. Dale Torborg wrestling as the Kiss Demon in 2021. He hasn't wrestled since 2007. Absolutely incredible. This is a very old hat. But eventually it came down to Moose and Matt Cardona. As the match settled down to the last 2 participants, it turned into a one-on-one match that needed to be won by pinfall or submission, which Moose eventually did, hitting a spear on Cardona for the win. That's not to say it was bad though, because honestly, a lot of battle royals just end up being fun because, oh, look at the guy go over the top rope. This was pretty middle of the road. I'll give it a 3 out of 5, but a big shout out to Ace Austin and Rich Swann. They had some really good spots in the middle of this match. That little trophy they had sure does suck though. My fantasy football football trophy's more impressive than that. It's like this big. It's a little dinky trophy. Spent all that money on Dale Torborg and couldn't afford a good trophy, eh? But the show then kicked itself into its next gear as the Impact World Tag Team Championships were on the line in a triple threat match as the Good Brothers defended against Finn Juice and Bullet Club, being represented by Hikuleo and Chris Bay. Personally, I'm a big fan of a lot of the guys that were in this match, and I got a lot of enjoyment out of seeing Chris Bay take on David Finlay and Juice Robinson in particular. A good portion of this match was Finn Juice working over Chris Bay, but we also got a lot of interplay between the Good Brothers and Hikuleo of Bullet Club. Hikuleo tried to do the underneath too sweet thing, but Doc Gallows was like, nah, B, I'm OG Bullet Club. We only do the too sweet if it's up here, not down here. It's a weird thing. Hikuleo and Doc Gallows were able to have some really fun big man spots before eventually Finn Juice were able to hit a double team move with Juice Robinson hitting a big splash on Chris Bay before that was broken up with Carl Anderson stealing the pin, retaining the titles for the Good Brothers. We were getting some This Is Awesome chants there at the end, and while I think that might be a little bit strong, this was still a very solid match. The vibe of a lot of Impact shows these days are very different from that of the old TNA shows from back in the day, although I will be perfectly honest, the old TNA Bound for Glories did often feel like this was the biggest show of the year. There was a good portion of this show where I didn't quite feel like this was Impact's biggest show of the year, but I will be perfectly honest, after this point, they basically held that feeling throughout. Even still, this was a very solid tag match. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. Next up in the semi-main, we had the Impact Knockouts Championship match as Deonna Purrazzo took on Mickie James. I love Mickie James. I don't think she was given nearly enough respect during this last WWE run, and by nearly enough, I mean any, especially now in Impact, where she is completely valued and looked at as one of their biggest stars of the past. She's now able to come back in and have a match of this caliber with one of the best women's wrestlers in the world in Deonna Purrazzo. What's not to love about that? This match started hot too, with Mickie James attacking Deonna Purrazzo at the bell before Deonna was eventually able to regain momentum a little bit, and they told the story of maybe Mickie James playing her best card too early. This was such a simple but fun story that they were able to tell through their in-ring work, but it was the near falls in this match that really solidified it as one of the best matches of the night. The near falls just kept building and building and building, and Mickie James eventually hit her patented DDT for a near fall, which absolutely shocked me and most of the people watching. After that near fall, I was completely hooked by everything they were doing. Deonna Purrazzo hit the Queen's Gambit, her Gotch style pile driver for a near fall. Mickie James was able to hit a big Luthez press off the top rope and then hit a big twisting tornado DDT for the win. Mickie James is your new Impact Knockouts champion. What year is it? I can't believe it's 2021. This match was absolutely fantastic and definitely a fitting way to end the reign of Deonna Purrazzo. This gets a 5 out of 5. We then had the main event as Christian Cage defended the Impact World Championship against Josh Alexander. I love it when my Toronto boys show out. It's Toronto versus Toronto. Let's go. The crowd was definitely split for this one, with decent amounts of fans cheering for both Christian Cage and Josh Alexander. I'm not sure that you're going to be able to find two more well-rounded wrestlers in Impact Wrestling right now than Christian Cage and Josh Alexander, and this main event completely reflected that. These guys worked incredibly well together, but I never felt like they reached that same kind of fever-pitched state with their near falls that the last match did. Don't get me wrong, this was still incredibly fun with excellent wrestling throughout, with Josh Alexander eventually trapping Christian's arm and locking in an ankle lock in order to get the submission win, winning the Impact World Championship. Christian, of course, gave Alexander the belt and gave him a big hug, saying that he deserved it, before Alexander started to celebrate in the ring with his family. What a lovely way to go off the air, right? Wrong. See? No, we're not allowed to have a happy ending for this show, as Moose came out with his little trophy, cashing it in for a shot at the Impact World Championship, beating Josh Alexander with one spear in about 5 seconds. His family was still in the ring. How many world title changes occur with a toddler in the ring? Probably not many. The main event was very good, and I thought that going off the air with Josh Alexander celebrating with his family as the new Impact champion would have been a perfect way to end this show, and I would have been perfectly happy giving that main event a 5 out of 5. As it stands with all this, I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 5. I really wasn't a big fan of Moose being involved in all this. It felt like they just needed to get one more little surprise in there, one more swerve, when they could have just left it alone and had a better show. Shortest ever Impact World Champion though. You can hang your headgear on that. So overall, I thought Bound for Glory 2021 was a very enjoyable show with some excellent matches sprinkled throughout. Definitely worth watching and definitely worth going out of your way to see. I'm going to give this event a 4 out of 5. And that just about wraps it up for me. Thank you guys so much for checking out my Bound for Glory 2021 review. It's always a lot of fun to talk about wrestling on this channel that doesn't get a whole lot of spotlight otherwise, things like Impact or New Japan. So if you like this, make sure you give it a thumbs up and leave a comment down below saying what your favorite match on the whole show was. Until then, jam that jam. and remain beautiful.